The mall was crowded that Saturday afternoon, families shopping, kids laughing, and the faint scent of cinnamon rolls floating through the air. But then she walked in. Karen, hair perfectly sprayed, sunglasses too big for her face, and that unmistakable "I own this place" strut that made every employee flinch before she even opened her mouth. Near the food court, there was a small restroom area. One for women, one for men, and a separate disabled access restroom. A large blue wheelchair symbol was printed on the door, clear as day. But that didn't stop Karen. You see, patience wasn't part of her vocabulary. She stormed down the hallway, glaring at the line of people waiting for the regular women's restroom. "Ugh, this is ridiculous," she huffed. "Some of us actually have things to do." An elderly man in a wheelchair sat nearby, quietly waiting for the disabled restroom to free up. He smiled politely, not realizing he was about to become the target of her wrath. Karen stomped toward the disabled door, clutching her designer purse. "I'm not waiting in that line," she snapped. "This one's empty anyway." The man spoke softly. "Ma'am, that restroom is reserved for people with—" "I know what it's for," she interrupted. "But I'll just be a minute. Don't make such a big deal." She pushed past him and slammed the door behind her. Click, the lock slid shut. Inside, Karen smirked at her reflection in the mirror. "See? Rules are just suggestions," she scoffed, pulling out her phone to check her makeup. But when she went to leave, the handle didn't budge. She jiggled it harder. Nothing. Locked. Tightly. Karen's smirk vanished. "What the—" She twisted, pushed, even kicked the door. "Hello?" Outside, a few heads turned. The elderly man sighed, rolling closer. "Everything all right in there?" Karen's voice echoed through the door. "The stupid lock's broken." "Get someone to open it." A janitor appeared with keys, shaking his head. That lock hasn't jammed in years. But as he fiddled with it, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Because this wasn't a jam. It was karma. And karma wasn't done yet. Karen's voice grew louder with every passing second. "Is anyone out there even trying?" she shouted, banging on the door. The hallway, once bustling with chatter, now echoed with her frustration. The janitor crouched beside the door, keys in hand, muttering, "I swear this key worked last week." He tried again. Click, twist, nothing. The old man in the wheelchair waited quietly nearby, watching with a patient half-smile. Inside, Karen was losing it. She kicked the metal door with her heel. Thud. "This is unbelievable!" "I'm going to complain to mall management. I'll have all of you fired." But karma was in no rush. Minutes dragged by. The air grew stuffy, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Karen fanned herself with her phone, muttering under her breath, "Why does this kind of thing always happen to me?" Outside, a small crowd began to form. A couple of teenagers tried not to laugh, one whispering, "Isn't that the lady who cut the line earlier?" Another snickered, "Guess the door didn't like her attitude either." The janitor finally straightened up. "Ma'am, I think the internal latch might have jammed from the inside. You'll need to stay calm while I get the maintenance crew." Karen groaned. "Stay calm? I'm trapped in a bathroom!" The old man's calm voice cut through the tension. "Sometimes patience pays off, ma'am. Maybe it's a good time to practice." Karen's glare could have melted steel. "Oh, please, don't preach to me about patience." "Not preaching," he replied softly. "Just speaking from experience. I've spent half my life waiting for things most people take for granted." For the first time, Karen didn't have a comeback. His tone wasn't sarcastic. It was sincere. His words hit harder than she expected. Meanwhile, maintenance arrived with a toolkit and a quiet chuckle. "So, you decided to use the accessible restroom, huh?" he said through the door. "Just open it," she snapped. The maintenance man turned the handle, tried a few tricks, then stepped back. "This thing's really stuck. We might have to remove the hinge." "Remove the hinge? Do you know how embarrassing this is?" The crowd outside giggled. Someone whispered, "Karma's got a sense of humor today." Trapped, sweaty, and humiliated, Karen finally slumped against the door. Her pride, the same pride that had her cut lines and break rules, was starting to crack. And little did she know, Karma had one more lesson waiting before it set her free. By the time maintenance returned with extra tools, half the food court knew about the lady trapped in the disabled restroom. Shoppers passed by curious, some holding up their phones to record. The janitor sighed. "Great, this is going on social media." Inside, Karen's anxiety had turned into fury. "If I see a single video of this online," she yelled through the door, "I'll sue this mall." Her words only fueled the laughter outside. Even the janitor struggled not to smirk. "Ma'am, please stay calm. We're trying to help." "You've been trying for 20 minutes, she snapped. "How long does it take to open a simple door?" The old man in the wheelchair chuckled softly. "That's the same thing. I asked when they said my new chair would take 6 months to arrive." Karen froze. Again, his voice carried no sarcasm, just quiet truth. For the first time, she listened. He continued. Sometimes, life locks you in places you didn't mean to go. You can fight the door all you want, but it only opens when you stop pushing so hard. Karen leaned her head back against the wall, rolling her eyes. But a tiny part of her, the part beneath all the anger, felt something shift. Suddenly the door handle rattled. "Hold on!" shouted the maintenance man. "We're almost there!" Karen jumped up. "Finally!" Then came a loud clank. The handle broke clean off. "What did you just do?" she screamed. The janitor winced. "Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen." The crowd burst into laughter. A kid whispered, "Even the door doesn't like her attitude." At this point, Karen's face was red with rage and embarrassment. "I'm not staying in here another second!" she yelled, pounding on the door. But over her shouting came a small voice, a little girl holding her mom's hand. "Mommy, isn't that the lady who took Grandpa's restroom?" Karen's heart sank. Everyone turned toward the child, then toward the old man, who gave a slow nod. Silence. Even Karen couldn't think of a comeback. For the first time, the weight of her actions settled in. "Maybe," the man said gently, "next time, you'll let the ones who need it go first." Karen lowered her voice, almost whispering. "Yeah, maybe." The maintenance man finally sighed in relief. "All right, folks, we'll get the outer panel off and open it from the hinge side. Give us a few minutes." As tools clinked and laughter faded, Karen waited. Quiet now. For once in her life, she was forced to stop talking and start thinking. The hallway had quieted down by the time maintenance began removing the hinges. The earlier laughter had faded into curious murmurs, and even the janitor looked exhausted. "Almost there, ma'am. Just a few more screws," he called. Inside, Karen stood by the sink, arms crossed, but her defiance had softened. The silence had given her too much time to think. Every sound outside, every giggle, every whisper, replayed her arrogance back to her like an echo. She remembered the look on that old man's face when she'd brushed him aside, the way his voice never once rose, even when she'd been rude. He had shown more dignity sitting in that chair than she had, standing in her expensive heels. A loud creak snapped her out of her thoughts. The door shifted, slowly prying open. Cool air rushed in as the maintenance man leaned through the gap, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're free, ma'am," Karen blinked, stepping forward. But as she exited, every eye in the hallway turned to her. Phones were still out. The janitor had managed to stop a few people from filming, but not all. Somewhere out there, this moment was already trending. The old man was still there, calm, patient, kind as ever. She hesitated, her pride warring with her guilt. Then, with a deep breath, she walked up to him. "I shouldn't have taken that restroom," she admitted quietly. "I'm sorry." The man smiled, his wrinkles deepening around his eyes. "Apology accepted. I hope you remember this next time someone else needs a little patience." Karen nodded. "I will." The janitor, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Well, at least now we know the lock works perfectly. Maybe a little too perfectly." The crowd chuckled. Karen actually smiled. A small, embarrassed smile, but genuine. "Guess I learned my lesson the hard way." She turned to leave, her step slower, her posture less proud. The mall noise returned, but something inside her had shifted. For once, she didn't feel like the center of attention, and she was perfectly fine with that. As she passed a mother with her child, the little girl whispered, "Mommy." "That's the lady who got stuck." Karen paused, then turned back with a grin. "Yeah, that was me. Don't ever take shortcuts, kiddo. Especially in restrooms." Laughter rippled again, this time warm, not mocking. Even the old man chuckled as she walked away, the sound of her heels fading down the hall. Karma had locked her in, but it also let her out a little wiser. Well, looks like karma really knows how to lock things in place. If you enjoyed watching Karen get a taste of her own medicine, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and drop a comment below about what you'd have done in her shoes.